Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third week and third episode of Lotus Rewind. I am joined, of course, by my lovely co host and analyst Stubby and Zymphonic. And today we have a special guest with us, Peypey. Also, some of you may know him as the Genesis org owner. Peypey, how are you doing? And why don't you give us a brief introduction of who you are for people who are not as familiar with you?
Yeah, okay, so my name is Peyton, also known as 711 on various games. Uh, we sort of started playing the amateur scene about a year ago. We started in some other leagues that may not have had the same competition that this one does so far.
Okay.
Um, but it's been a journey. We've had a bunch of different roster changes, and to sort of be like first timers in this scene, and there's a lot to learn, and we're definitely doing that. And now we're here playing in an off-season league, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you here in the LNL and today on Lotus Rewind. Have yet to interview an org owner, so maybe you could bring us a little bit of different perspective, maybe than some of the other candidates here. But one of the first questions that I want to ask you is, as an org owner, what are some of the qualities that you think makes teams and individual players successful?
I think s- about 50% of like having success on a team or being successful as a player, a lot of it is just compatibility. There are some players that just aren't compatible with other people. And I don't mean that like mentally or something like that. Sometimes people just have different perspectives and it goes against the grain, so to speak. And so it doesn't really work. So you have to sort of at least find a player that you are compatible with, at least mostly. And then you also have to be open minded. They're going to have a different perspective on you than how the game should be played because they have different experiences. They've done it differently than you have, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. So you really just have to be open, and you also have to hold yourself accountable. If you're not questioning what you're doing wrong after every game, even in wins, then you're not going to be successful as a player, and then the team isn't going to be successful.
Yeah, I really like the idea of holding yourself accountable, especially if you're in a position on a team like the captain of a team or something. I think it's really important for your teammates to see you holding yourself accountable for mistakes that you make or other things like that that would happen in game, and in return can help them do the same. Um, but other than that, what is your thought process overall when you're building a team coming into the LNL? What do you look for?
Yeah, so when LNL just started, we were sort of finishing a playoff run in a different league, and we had a pretty solid five, I would think. It was myself and then the other org owner who was there at its inception, and we kind of play wherever we want to play. I originally started out in mid lane, he started out in top lane, and we just kind of didn't like those roles competitively versus solo queue. And then we just had to start building it around. Uh, it got to the point where like players would just like not show up for tryouts or something like that, as tryouts usually do. But it ended up being like I found a player who plays on my school's team, and it's been really cool to have like a player that's also sort of local rather than having to worry about different time zones and stuff like that. And then you just kind of friend of a friend until you find someone that like it's your sense of humor and wants to play League of Legends the same way you do. Um, in an ideal world, it's not like that where you're just kind of like searching through the grapevine looking for people. But it is kind of just trial and error.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things when forming an amateur team or trying to come into any of these leagues is having consistent tryouts. Like you said, people that will say that they want to do a tryout and then you talk to them for a week and then 30 minutes before the tryout they're like, "Hey, look, I'm not going to be able to do this." It's like, "Okay, dude." I think it's people online can be really inconsistent and hard to hard to keep accountable. But other than that, I'm going to pass it over to Zymphonic, who has some questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your words or in your eyes, what does success look like for a team? You talked a little bit about how you guys have been in different leagues, and maybe not as many as structured as Lotus looks like. But yeah, how do you guys determine success?
Okay, so the easy answer here is that like success is like ratio, right? Like we should be undefeated. That's what a successful team is. But you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes of these teams who are like having these runs. Like their comms could be absolutely terrible, but they're just so like mechanically good at the game, or they've been playing together for a while. So that's not how I really like to measure success. I like to measure success basically at the end of a series, win or loss. One, did I have a good time? Two, did I learn something? And three, like, was this worth me requesting other people to show up for their time? If I can answer like all three of those questions, keep going, then I'm going to have fun, I'm going to play better, and then we're going to ultimately win more. So winning isn't the root cause, it's just a symptom of having like a good team and a good time.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes absolute sense. And not to be a downer and stick to the subject of losses, but I mean, like you mentioned earlier, this league has some stiff competition at times. So how does a team, let's say your team or any team really, overcome loss or failure?
We're kind of used to loss at this point. When we first started in the amateur scene, we were going to sign up in like the gold capped league essentially. Uh, but one of the players at the time, who was one of like my real life friends, hit plat like the season before and was no longer eligible. So we were like, you know what, screw it, we'll just play in the next league. We're great players, right? No, the disparity is pretty big. So we spent that entire first like season of our competitive like stint playing at a deficit and learning and growing and stuff like that. So it was lots of VOD reviews, lots of scrims, and it was mostly like kind of taking a hard look at yourself. And a lot of it does kind of reflect on who you are as people, which I don't think people understand that like even though it's just a video game, it's really introspective. Especially we started playing at the beginning of COVID and stuff like that. So there was a bunch of other things going on. Uh, you kind of get used to it after a little bit, not to be like we're always gonna lose. But I think once you get used to losing, you get to have like more fun because in a game you try something silly, you take a really high risk. If it works off, great. You've got a highlight. You're gonna look back. You're gonna feel good. If you lose, what else can happen? We've lost before. We're gonna lose again. There's nowhere really to go but up. So it's not something that we tend to dwell on. It's more of like, what did we do good? What do we do bad? How do we maximize the good? How do we minimize the bad? And don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a really good perspective to have, especially coming from the top down, from the org owner. Sometimes it's difficult. You're not always going to win, and at the end of the day, this game is a game, and it's meant for fun. None of us are getting paid the big bucks. Like the
Yeah.
pro players. So I mean, we got to have some kind of fun with it, and I like that. Like I said, it's coming from the top, so that's always really cool to hear. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Stubby because I think he's got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
All right, Peypey, let's get down to business. All right, so um, I'm just curious about. I guess you've played, in the first 3 weeks now, and you kind of get an idea of how the competition looks like. And you said you've also played in a previous league recently. Um, what are your top 8 teams or top 8 predicted teams that you think, these teams, they're gonna make playoffs, they're gonna do well, and they're not really gonna fall from the ladder, and they're gonna, just continue holding their ground.
Yeah, I don't have any order to them because I've only mostly seen like the teams that I played against, and I've seen a lot of the Gardenia League teams. But just based on like what I've been able to kind of snuff up, I think CB Rush is going to be like unstoppable. Like I didn't expect it, especially since coming from the league I was previously playing in. I recognized some of the names that were also in Lotus, and I expected them to do like phenomenal, and they are not performing as I expected them to. And to see somebody else at the top like that, I'm like, oh, this has to be like good competition. I'm a little upset that they're not in my group. I was really hoping to play against them because you do just learn a lot by playing against teams like that. Uh, like when we played against Cape Dogs Valor week one, I believe. One of the Cape Dogs teams. I can't remember which one, but it's one of them. Uh, the game was going very smoothly until like I landed a thresh hook, and then the entire team was in the bush, and it did made me realize like what sort of coordinated play it requires to like play at this level. And so that's something I see in a bunch of teams. Like I said, CB Rush, the Cape Dogs teams, they're both performing like better than I expected them to. Absolute Esports. I really enjoyed playing against Catalyst Wraith. Uh, it was closer than I expected it to be, but also the gap was larger than I expected it to be. And then sort of rounding out this list is TA Super Cuties. Like I said, coming into this league, I recognize if you name Manatsu is one of them. I respect Manatsu so much as a player. Uh, and then I think at the sort of bottom of these predictions are both the Lotus teams. We played
Mhm.
against the Lotus, one of the Lotus teams last week. I think it was Black, uh, and got stomped. But our mental wasn't entirely where it needed to be. So those are sort of the teams that I'm sort of seeing like our successful side in and trying to emulate.
Perfect. I mean, thanks for the great rundown. And I don't know if you, so your Genesis team and LGL is actually doing pretty well. You know, they hold themselves in the middle of the pack right now, doing pretty decent. Better than the Plat League, unfortunately for you. But um, do you know like maybe any teams that maybe you kind of watch out for as an org owner in maybe LGL, or any like maybe organizations that you're aware of? Maybe like the Conduits, like you mentioned the CBs, the
Yeah.
Goonsword Gamings, like anyone that kind of any team or organization that kind of hey, I've seen you guys before. How's it going?
I do respect CB a lot. I've heard Rutledge's name. I've never spoken to him or played against him or anything like that. But from what I can tell, he's pretty serious, and their team is performing at the top of the Primrose League, so they've got to be doing something right. Um, and I know that Clown Gaming was originally going to play on Genesis Academy and left the day before the season started. So I do sort of respect them in that way. Uh, I can't really think of any other teams. Obviously, I know, believe a few players from one of the new wave teams. I just haven't really seen them play a lot. Um, and the Genesis Academy games that I've watched so far have been really close in skill. I think the only ones that really got the best of us were Clown Gaming, but I did miss those games. I heard it was not as we would have liked it
Mhm.
to have been. Uh, so I guess I have to give it out to CB and Clown Gaming.
CB and Clown Gaming, nice. I mean, like you guys did have a couple of the Clown Gaming members, I guess, before the season started, and then suddenly, things happen and teams had to move out, so they got a spot. So I mean, I guess I kind of respect them for, I guess, sticking with their original team. I guess maybe who they're more comfortable with. But Pepe, can you maybe tell me any players that you personally look out for? Maybe as a support player, some support, players that you've played that have just played extremely well, and you're like, holy shit, this guy's a monster.
Yeah.
Anyone that stuck out to you?
I think I can't remember who it was. I believe it's one of the Cray Dogs. They have the same name, but it's the support. Uh, that Alistar game was terrifying. My team didn't really know how to deal with like the roaming helicopter Alistar, and it kind of like wreaked havoc. And I've had the highest vision score in like every game I've played as support, even though we've been particularly behind. He like dominated me in like every aspect of support that game. So I wish I knew which one it was. But shout out to you, Quay
I
Dog.
think it's just Cray Dog, just
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
Kraydog
support.
is a support. He's a
The ADC is
beast.
Quay Dog.
yeah.
I don't know
and
Yeah.
what's up with that, but you know.
and then an AD carry I really respect is the AD carry played against last week. I'm a Jincel. Uh, I mean, I don't know. It could have just been the team's mental at the time, but I was not having fun in lane, so I just decided to leave lane and not come back.
Fair enough.
Uh, and then I already shouted out Manatsu earlier, but my final shout out is going to be one of the players that I'm going to have starting for us this week, Baba Jab. One of the most disgusting mid laners I've ever seen. I don't know how they're going to compare to the competition this week since he's a brand new player in a brand new league, but keep an eye out for him if you're interested.
Perfect. So basically, your LPL Primrose roster is looking very different because, like you said, the team's gone through a lot, gone through some changes. When you start off bad, I mean, emotions get high. It's hard. People get, I would get tilted. Like, let's be honest,
Yeah.
I would get tilted. I'm like, okay, something needs to happen, right? And if we don't make it happen quick, then we're not gonna make playoffs. So I respect the decision of the roster moves. Do you think that you guys can, bring it back? I mean, I'm sure you think that, but like you said, these roster additions, like, how confident are you that maybe these guys can get you back on your feet?
Um, Honestly, it all depends on this week. We've had a tough like beginning of this season. I think we've had maybe a harder set of matchups than a lot of the other teams have had. Uh, so I think if we can win this week, I believe we're against Absolute Esports, who I have not watched any of their games yet, but they've seemed to be steamrolling. If we can take a game off them, I think we have to win the series to like still remain playoff eligible. But I'm
Mhm.
confident that if we have success this week, we will have success continuing forward. Um, it's kind of good that we have essentially a brand new team, brand new mental, brand new players. I'm I have high hopes.
Perfect. I mean, I also want to shout out your production team. I know you guys stream both the LPL and LGL games, correct? You guys do, right? You know,
Yeah.
it's always good to catch, especially because we're analysts and like we get to actually see the game. So I do appreciate your org for
Mhm.
bringing the content there. I am gonna take it switch it over to JVL, who's gonna just conclude us here. Pepe, just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, all this talk about what's happening behind the scenes, not being able to not really being able to decipher maybe the roster issues, or you touched on earlier, Pepe, even maybe comm issues that teams may be having. And it's still early enough to have an undercover agent go in and destroy CB Dusk. So we're just going to need someone to go in there and, yeah, infiltrate them and kind of stir things up so that the rest of the season will get a little spicier. But in all seriousness, thank you so much, Pepe, for stopping by today. Any last words before we head out here?
Uh, I just really want to shout out my mid laner, not Abjab that I recently shouted out, but Pjark. Uh, didn't have the greatest of showings so far, but it's hard to play League of Legends during finals week. And
True.
I really respect him for making the effort and always being there for every game and just a good friend all around. So thank you, Bjark, for playing.
All right, great. Thank you, Pepe, once again for stopping by. And we're going to head right into the power rankings now for week 3. Thank you so much again, Pepe, for that wonderful interview. And now we will be taking a look at the power rankings and players of the week for week 3 of the LNL. Zymphonic, run it down for us.
Absolutely. We got some changes going on, definitely in these standings, and some players of the week. I mean, some expected players and some unexpected ones. But yeah, I mean, power rankings. I much like every week, what can I say? CB Rush still leading the pack right now. Did not drop a game against Lotus White this last week. It was definitely probably their toughest matchup of the season so far. You know, star 80 carry players going up against each other, but CB Rush clutched it out, and I mean they remain on top. Coming in next, we got Cape Dogs Unchained. They had a solid win again this week. They went 2-1 against Omega, and I mean they're still looking pretty strong. They're still undefeated in their respective group. They definitely got some tougher matchups coming up. Not this week, but next week they'll actually be facing CB Rush. So that'll be exciting to watch as well. Coming in as our biggest change of week number 3 is Absolute Esports. Absolute Esports took down. I am not going to remember actually, but they took down their opponent. I mean, they went. I'm sorry, they took down Cape Dogs Valor. What am I thinking about? That's kind of where the biggest change was. It was definitely, at least in my opinion, more favor towards Cape Dogs Valor. They've had tougher matchups. Absolute Esports. I mean, they're on a tear. I mean, they're 3-0. They kind of came out of nowhere as a dark horse, and they climbed from 8th to 3rd. Just simply because they've beat the next 2 teams already. Cape Dogs Valor, they again lost to Absolute Esports, had to drop a little bit there. Not much more to say. They got some tougher matchups coming up as well. Callus Wraith, they did win their match this last week, but they've lost to Cape Dogs Valor, so it's kind of fair to keep them just a little bit lower just right now. They're looking to make a comeback after dropping a game or a match in week 2, but they're definitely looking to recover strong. Lotus White, unfortunately, did take a loss to CB Rush, so they're dropping down a bit just because they haven't really played a lot of other matchups against some of these top teams just yet. But, you know, one more win, one more hard-earned win is definitely going to put them right back on top. Another change, we got DZG Olympus coming in 7th. They ended up taking down Lotus Black this last week in a 2-1 win. Unfortunately, dropping Lotus Black out of the power rankings. But I mean, DZG Olympus, another one of those black or dark horse teams who are just kind of popping off and looking to make that playoff contention run. And then lastly, our match of the week last week was TA Super Cuties. They actually only ended up playing one game due to an unfortunate, I think, timing issue with a disqualification for game number 1. So they only got to play one game. They still have yet to face aside from week number 1, a top team just yet, at least in the power rankings. That is going to be coming up soon. So just keep a look. I mean, if they take one of these kind of crazy wins, I think actually they're playing against CB Rush this next week. So I mean, who knows? They might be the ones to take down CB Rush in week 4. So we'll have to keep an eye out and see kind of what climb that they can make. But that's enough for power rankings. Coming into players of the week, we got some changes. We got some expected players. But first and foremost, we got top lane. We got Kovu from Cape Dogs Unchained. Kobu has been consistently putting in week after week's worth of work over the last 3 weeks. He's found a really good balance between split pushers and tanky engages for the team. A lot of the times you see that Cape Dog is really relying on Kobu to kind of neutralize that top lane matchup. He's being put on things like Ornn, Shen, even on things like Camille. It's really just, we're going to leave him on an island. He's going to do his thing, and we're not going to have to worry about really anything else. And I mean, to be honest, his performance against Omega Runeterra this last week left little to be desired. I mean, he went 8-0-17 on Ornn, and he went 4-3-8 on Shen. So I mean, this guy's just popping off. Some notable stats. He is currently the leader for least deaths per game. He's currently at 1.38 deaths over 8 games, and he also has the highest CS of all top laners right now at 7.39 CS a minute. So he's definitely putting in the work, and he's definitely a solid top laner. Someone you definitely want to watch out for. In the jungle, we got Mercy Hawk. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's Mercy Hawk coming in, swooping in and picking off players left and right into the rift. Mercy Hawk, I mean, he's been proving himself as a high-tempo jungler right now. I mean, he is constantly applying pressure around the map. He has a very heavy carry-based champ pool, things like Vi, Talon, even Sejuani. He makes that look super aggressive. But he's honestly, any kill that he gets on these champions, he's been turning it into a really crazy advantage later on in the games. So even though he's been eating a couple bans, man, this guy's staying true to his name. Teams will only be given mercy in the form of death, just like a hawk, just swooping down. But yeah, I mean, right now he's tied for least deaths in the game right now, tied for third, 2 deaths over 7 games. He's also the second ranked jungler in the LPL right now, and he's ranked 6 overall, based on our MVP rating system. Again, really great performances on Viego. He was 12-1-9. Vi, he was 7-0-6. This man's just taking names. Coming into the mid lane, you guys have all been waiting for it. He's been begging for it. He told me if I didn't, he'd kill me. Nah, I'm just kidding. But absolutely, after much disbelief, CBR Rutledge is coming in as player of the week for the mid lane in week number 3. He leads the charge figuratively, and sometimes literally on CB Rush and in their LPL success right now. He constantly is eating Vex and Lux bans over the last 3 weeks, but honestly, it didn't matter. He busted out the craziest pick of all with Cho'Gath in the mid lane, and let me tell you, it's not something I ever want to play against, and I probably will never get to play against it. But he ended up with a whopping 14-2-3 KDA on the Cho'Gath, and he emphasized it even more by picking up the season's first pentakill. And that's just, what more can you say about Rutledge right there? He's a menace in the mid lane, and honestly, he's probably one of the challenges that people will play against when they play against CB Rush. Some notable stats for him: he's the 4th highest kills per game, 8 kills, averaging 8 kills over 6 games. He's also the 2nd highest damage per game as well, or per minute, at 8.22 over 6 games. And he is the number 1 mid laner in the LPL, and he's also the rank 1 overall player in the LPL right now. Wow. So definitely praise where praise is due. Coming up next, not to leave Rutledge alone, we got CBR Nuffies, making his return to the Lotus Rewind, not as a guest this time, but finally, as the ADC of the week. Having just barely missed it in week number 2, Nuffies, strikes back and takes down the rank 1 AD carry from last week, from Lotus White. He's honestly always coming out of lane with a lead. Somehow, one way or another, where it's 2v2s, whether it's early jungle pressure, he's always coming out of lead against other bot laners right now. He has the best CS per minute, and he honestly, based on his positioning, even when you take a look, it is hard to find him in any kind of engage the team is looking for. So definitely number 1 AD carry right now, and I mean his stats show it. He is currently has the highest kills per game. He's at 9.33 kills per game over 6 games. He has the highest CS per minute as well, 8.59 over 6 games. 3rd highest damage in the league, and tied for 3rd least deaths in the game. He is number 1 ADC for the LPL, and he's ranked 2nd overall in the LPL. So definitely CB Rush is bringing some hard hitters, and I mean it's showing over these last 3 weeks. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we have Can't Boil Water in the support position from Absolute Esports. Definitely something people might not be seeing or be expecting, but she has definitely been putting in the work. Not wanting to let her team's carries have all the time in the limelight. She busted out a bunch of damage carries this last week. She busted out the Senna, she busted out the Lux, and they were damage-oriented builds, so that's really cool to see. She has played 7 unique champions over 7 games, so any team is going to have a really hard time banning her out. And she strikes a really good balance of having engaged champions, enchanters, mage supports. It's honestly really easy, it seems like, to draft around that bot lane with everything that she can bring out into these games. And right now they're on their third win thanks to her, Mercy Hawk, and the rest of her team. They are currently in first place of their division, so it's really cool to see what they got going on. She's tied, or she has the third highest assist in the league, and she's in top 10 vision score for the league as well. So really cool stuff to see. Honorable mentions coming through for the LPL. We have EQ Neebs, jungler for DZG Olympus, with their win over Lotus Black this last week. He's been leading the charge with back-to-back Jarvan games this last week, securing the 2-1 win. He's a strong voice of the team. What can I say? I mean, he is a key piece to DZG pushing for that playoff position. He is currently one of the top 3 junglers in the LPL, and he's ranked 8th overall in the LPL. So definitely someone to keep an eye out for, and who knows, might be leading DZG to that playoff spot. Last honorable mention, we have King Eatloaf. Not a stranger to being a top player of the week. He is only an honorable mention this week. He had some crazy matches against Omega Runeterra on the Lux and on the Xerath. It was absolutely terrifying to see him snipe some of these players and take them down. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if we see more bans against him. He's been eating Lux bans and Vex bans and a million bans. And I'm honestly, it just seems like he can't ban him out either. He's always going to find something to just start taking people down left and right. He currently holds the highest damage per minute over 8 games at 823 per minute. He is in top 10 kills per game as well, and he has the top 10 least deaths, and he is the 3rd ranked mid in the LPL. So definitely some hard hitters, even out of the players of the week as well. Lastly, we got matches of the week. We got some good matches. We got Lotus Black versus Kalidas Wraith coming in on Thursday. Both teams are sitting at 2-1 records, so they're really looking to kind of break out and kind of start making a run for one of the top playoff spots. I mean, top 4 teams make it out of each division, so they're definitely looking to lock in some of those spots and create some distance from the other teams. And then lastly, a little bit lower down the pack, some teams that are really looking to kind of catch back up right now. We got CWRU Crescent Guard versus AOE God Squad. Both these teams are kind of in the middle of the pack right now, and they're looking to make a dash for a spot. So they're going to be contending for that 4th spot against some of these teams. But yeah, I mean, that's everything for the LPL this week.
Some of these players are putting up crazy numbers too. Like 14 kills in a game on Rutledge on Shogath, averaging 9 kills a game as ADC for Nuffies. That is just crazy stats there. And
it's insane.
yeah, I also want to give a quick shout out to KC in the top lane there. I actually coached KC not too long ago on another team with Duddy and a few other players, and I knew he was a monster, so I'm really glad to see him popping off here too. In the LPL, definitely someone you want to look out for in the top lane, who a lot of people might not be too familiar with, but he can play all different types of styles. Zavonik said he played Ornn and Shen, but I mean, I've seen him. You can play through him, you can leave him alone. He's just a really good tool to have. So big shout out to KC. And yeah, we're going to be moving right on to LGL, the Gardenia League, this week for week 3. And we have our expert Stubby here to give us the rundown.
Hello. All right. So for the 4th week in a row, we got TA Spirit in the #1 spot. TA Spirit, you guys will never move that. You guys will never let Clown go up, will you? But TA Spirit, they kind of had some unclean games versus New Wave Paradox. Game 1 was a comeback from TA. They were down in gold, and then they came alive during the mid game where I think Caxi had 2 objective steals.
Yeah.
One was the Baron and one was the Drake, where I mean, he just completely turned, turned everything in that game and just got them that victory. But the game did seem rough. They were trying to dive New Wave Paradox's backline when they have it's like Zyra, Sivir, Janna. I mean, like it's kind of hard when you have a comp like that, which can just kite back, especially with Janna and like Zyra peel. But they kind of left Jason Script fending for himself in the game, especially in a comp where you have to peel Jinx. I mean, Jinx is like meta right now. Like literally Jinx B1, you're picking Jinx, dude. So game 1, I'm gonna shout out Caxi for absolutely being a Chad and carrying them past this game. But Team Ambition, they're still at the top. They seem like they're kind of getting exposed, and like teams have kind of caught on to how TA likes to play, and it nearly costed them the series last week. But they're still on top of the power rankings. In the 2nd seed, we have Clown Gaming. They did face off against Genesis. We did just interview one of Genesis owners, Peypey, but here's a hot take. I think that this division is significantly weaker than the other division, and if Clown was in the other division, they'd probably be fighting for a playoff spot right now.
Oh
I mean, that's a hot take,
wow.
especially since Clown is kind of dominating the games. But when we interviewed Batman last week, was it? Yeah, last week.
Yeah.
I mean, he did kind of say they had some issues in other leagues and they kind of just ramped up towards playoffs. But I
True.
do think the bracket that Clown is in is significantly weaker. They did make easy work of Genesis though, and I guess it was just another day for Batman and Clown. So number 3, we got CB Dusk. They won 2-1 over Imperial Gaming. They also used an E-sub, and they won with 2 ban loss. They had Hitman as ADC. I think still this is one of the best teams in the league, especially no offense to Brock at all, but I have scrimmed against Hitman, and that dude is a monster. Um, I think Hitman's really good, and the 2 ban loss, it allowed Imperial to get their prio picks, but it didn't matter. Dude, CB does pick MF mid one game. Like,
Oh my
what is
goodness, I saw
that?
that clip.
Like, if you're playing MF
You're
mid,
pushing it.
you're pushing it. But I mean, I think one of the best mid laners in LGL is playing MF mid, so it's fine. But game 2, Potato set. So on Imperial Gaming, Potato Tomato was kind of shitting on Sarek over there in the counter pick Jace, but I mean, it didn't really matter. Azure Fire's Casio ran out of control, and then after that, after a certain point, Set and Casio, it's just too much. And basically, Imperial ended the game in 37 minutes. But then game 3, CB Dust, they brought it back. They take the W. That's why they're going to retain the 3rd seed. Number 4, we have Aegis Gaming. They won 2-1. Kind of unclean wins over CWRU, but um, Aegis kind of struggled based off where they are in the standings. You could also argue that Aegis hasn't played any of the better teams in the division yet, so I'm more excited to see how they will do. This week they're playing against CB Dust. I'm expecting a 2-0 CB Dust. No offense to you guys, but if you prove me wrong, hit me with a @ and you can flame the shit out of me. In the 5th spot, we got Imperial Gaming, a team that I personally have a lot of respect for. They did lose to the CB Dusk. I'm not really going to repeat much because it was mostly covered in the CB Dust slot, but I wouldn't be too harsh to teams playing teams like CB Dust because that team was pretty much playing with a draft handicap. So I'll just move on from that. Conduit Esports, number 6. They had a nice 2-0 victory over New Wave Esports. Game 1, they completely dominated early game and they just rolled the competition with their strong side top. Game 2 pretty much went the same, standard stomp. They play top side, rolled the competition. Guys, Conduit plays top side. Like, I'm
Yeah.
literally telling you how to
Conduit
scout
plays
these people.
topside every
Like,
game.
come on, bro. Ban the top laner. Get your top laner counter pick.
You're giving
It
away
was a clean
secrets
2-0.
here, Stubby.
I know, right? Like I'm just a draft king. All right, number 7, we have Genesis Academy. They lost to Clown Gaming. I mean, Batman's just taking all his enemies down, but Genesis Academy did fall in the standings quite a bit. They just gotta continue on the onward grind, and unfortunately, their following week opponents much easier. They're facing Conduit, and I don't really think that's gonna go too well. But hey, good luck to them. And my 8th team and my last team, Goonside Gaming. You guys won 2-0 over Cape Dogs, so good stuff there. It wasn't streamed, so I couldn't really, say much apart from the stats and the screenshots. It kind of looked like a standard Goonside Gaming game. I think Vandril played absolutely well. Like if I looked at someone in that series, uh, Bam and Vandril absolutely popped off. So shout out to them. And let's move on to the player of the weeks. We got first up, great Ripman in the top lane. And let me enlighten you guys with something. This dude played Fiddlesticks top.
Oh my. Wait,
He
like
played
tank
I love it.
fiddlesticks?
I don't remember the build, but he went 6-1-8 on Fiddlesticks top. So
Damn. Okay.
Man.
I don't like
I
that
like
sounds like
it.
dude, that sounds like a horrible pick as a
It,
top
it
laner.
does. It does. It sounds
Like I feel
awful.
like what does Fiddle do against the gank? You just die.
Yeah,
You
and
just camp the
especially
Fiddle.
the popular top lane champs right now, like how do you
Exactly.
ever survive versus
I don't know. So
Camille, Set,
Man.
anything?
yeah, I mean, Set just runs out. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
well,
mean,
I guess you
dude,
could fear Set technically, but
when I saw the
still.
Fiddle again, I'm like, holy, dude. I mean, that's amazing. And then he went 8-0-2 on Mordekaiser, 14 KDA. Game 1 almost had a perfect series. He was one death away from having a perfect series. So good job to him. Great rebound from Conduit Esports, the top laner guys. Ban goddamn Fiddlesticks as a menace. In the jungle for Player of the Week, we got Black Eyed Peas, and we did see a perfect series from Black Eyed Peas. I think this is the first one so far. 10-0-4 on Poppy, 5-0-6 on Trundle.
Oh my.
I mean,
Jeez, man.
dude, having
10
that high
monsters.
KP.
4 on Poppy.
Exactly, having that high KP on a jungler while not dying.
Yeah.
That's some. This guy's cracked. In the mid lane, we have Fiendish Codex's A-word, 12-1-6 Victor. Victor, absolutely disgusting champion. Ban that garbage. 8-0 and Great. Oh my god, just playing the most OP
He
champions.
played
Like, what is
Graves?
Graves mid? He went 8-0 and 8.
God.
I hate both of those champions, but
A-word is a beast.
yeah, Award's good. Award likes to farm, likes to take all the goddamn resources, but he nearly doubled the enemy mid laner's gold, and he almost averaged 10 CS per minute. I think Victor and Graves are pretty good champions to do that
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah.
good job to Award. In the AD carry position, I'm so sorry, Induced, but it's gonna be Love Hitman. I think he was the win con for CB Dusk. He played Cassiopeia bot, went 11-1 and 7. Guys, I hate that pick. It's like,
Cassiopeia bot's so
it just kills me
frustrating.
because if you don't
It's
kill
so
Cassiopeia
bad.
bot before first back,
Yeah.
she's just gonna scale and become a monster. 4-4-11 on Lucian, and then game 3 went 8-2-11 on Sivir. Had like I think 3K gold league game 1 and 5K gold league game 3. Consistently was the best performing player in the series. So I mean, he was an E sub, and he is a sub on this roster. So I mean, if you have someone like this in the sub position, then I mean, how deep can your team really go? So
True.
Love Hitman, shout out to you. And like I mentioned before, we have in the support spot Vandrill. I deeply apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. I hope I'm not. If I am, you can at me and flame me. That's fine. 0113 on Braum, 2415 on Blitzcrank. Not a pick that you see a lot. I feel like Blitzcrank, you're really like saying like, dude, I'm gonna do everything here and just carry this game. 76% KP. He had game 1, and not much to say else other than that. I wasn't really impressed by like many other supports. I know some supports had some nice lineups, but I thought Vandrel was like the deciding factor, especially with that disgusting KP. So yeah, those are the top 5 players of the week for LGL. Some players to watch out for. Um, Chitin versus his followers, meaning they're just doing some weird stuff, changing their names and being a little special, but it's okay. And Chitin, in his own words, said this is also a lot of this is from JT. He also runs the Gardenia League with me, so he most of this content is provided on him because I was hungry when I came home and I didn't have a chance to prepare,
Okay,
so
dude.
my bet on that. But yeah, Chitin, in his own words, said he had the worst series so far in LGL, and looking forward to how he bounces back this week against quote unquote his followers who have been doing pretty well in Division A so far. And my next shout out, Induced buddy, I at least tried. You got shout out last week and this week. You just got slightly edged out, slightly. I'm sorry, but Love Hitman edged him out on performance wise. You know, we got to see that game, but Induced, there's no way you're gonna get snubbed 4 times in a row, right? Like next week, I hope I see your goddamn name there,
Surely.
or else I don't know, Batman's gonna have to make some moves or something. But that's it for the Gardenia League. Honestly, it looks like we're starting to see like a refining top 8, like consistently. The teams are moving up and down, but look out for some teams making their way up there. Some games that I thought looked pretty well. Dude, they sound like bangers. All right, banger number 1, New Wave Paradox versus Imperial Gaming, banger. Banger number 2, CB Dust versus Aegis Gaming, banger.
True.
Banger number 3, GSG versus New Wave Esports, banger. And the stream game of this week, Cape Dogs Unleashed versus Fiendish Codex. 2 teams that seem pretty inconsistent, but let's see who pulls out the dub. Oh, wait, I forgot about the last one. Conduit Esports versus Genesis Academy. Dude, we got some good games this
Yeah,
week.
all good games.
There we
All
go.
Damn.
pretty close on the
uh,
standings too.
Exactly, but I mean, that's gonna do it for my LGL part here. Good luck to
Yeah.
all the teams competing this week, and see how you guys do moving into the Christmas break.
Yeah, really quick before we cut off the LGL, I do want to give a shout out to Vandrel as well. Like you touched on earlier, Stubby, I've seen Vandrel play a good amount of games now, and he seems like he is always playing consistently and always popping off and being that rock that his team needs in the support role. So shout out to Vandrel, and we're going to head right into the weekly highlights.
Last night these 2 bouncers and one of them's alright, the other one's a scary and his way or no way, totalitarian. He's got no time for you, looking or breathing how he don't want you to. So step out the queue, he makes examples of you, and there's no way you can say behind the go through to the bit where you pay, and you realise then that it's finally the time to walk back past 10,000 eyes in a line, and you can swap last night what we talked about, it made so much sense. But now the haze has ascended, it don't make no sense anymore. We said last night what we talked about.
Another awesome set of highlights from this week in the LNL. Stubby, what was your favorite clip from those?
I mean, like I said before, the deciding factor for TA, Caxi. I'm a big Caxi fan. I think Caxi is 100% one of the reasons why TA is a top team. I mean, I think that Baron seal was right before a Dragon seal, right? Just like from
Yeah.
one objective seal to another objective seal. I mean, you have to have that, just killer play style where, you're just gonna be confident in yourself and just steal that goddamn Baron. Caxi. You're a beast. Good shit, Caxi. Definitely deserve to be highlighted this week. So good stuff. TA Spirit Caxi.
Symphonic, what about you?
And I got to give it to Rutledge. I mean, I can't say his name enough or he'll come after me. But, I mean, that pentakill on the Cho'Gath is, I mean, it's the first one of the season. It's on an unexpected champion. And, I mean, he's just, it doesn't matter what you ban against this guy, Like, he's eating Lux and Vex bans, and, like, he busts out the Cho'Gath and just gets a pentakill. I mean, that's enough to put anybody to be like, yeah, it doesn't matter what we ban against him. Maybe we should rethink our strategy at this point. If you're playing against CBR.
I really liked Yipsy's play on Rel with the turnaround into like a 4-man Rel ald. We don't see many Rels get love and many Rels played at all, but I do think she is a solid pick if you have, if you have the ability to play her well enough, you can get those crazy engages off. So shout out to Yipsy there on that Rel, but that's going to be about us here from Lotus Rewind for week 3. In the upcoming episodes, we're going to be focusing more on player and team-based content, stuff like the best bot duo, the best mid-jungle duo, maybe analyzing some drafting from the teams in the league. So let us know what you guys want to see. And from everyone here at Lotus Rewind, we hope you have a great set of holidays, and we will see you guys soon.
Merry Christmas!
Time to walk back past 10,000 eyes in a line, and you can swap jumpers and make another move.